Paul Blomfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I begin by congratulating you for your stamina in the chair for now more than 12 hours. And can I also welcome the Right Honourable Member for North East Cambridgeshire in what I think is his first outing in his new role as Brexit Secretary. I notice that there is a rapidly diminishing tenure for those in the post. The first Brexit Secretary lasted 24 months, the second 5 months, and so I'm hoping that the new occupant of the post can at least make it through till oral questions on Thursday. It is a privilege to wind up the first of the 5 days of debate that we'll be having on the government's withdrawal bill, and to do so on a day in which Parliament has asserted its sovereignty so dramatically. And today's debate has confirmed that the government has forged a remarkable consensus on one thing at least: opposition to their deal. A deal that fails not only this Parliament but fails the British people. Now, Labour campaigned to remain in the European Union because we believed it to be in the economic and political interests of our country and of the continent that we share and will continue to share, and for all of the reasons that were set out so powerfully by my right honourable friend, the member for Leeds Central. But we accepted that we lost the referendum. That's why we voted to trigger Article 50, setting the clock ticking. But the last 2 years have been squandered as negotiations with the EU 27 have taken second place to those between the warring factions in the Conservative Party, and the country is paying the price. But, Mr. Speaker, it didn't have to be like this. The Right Honourable Member for Altrincham and Sale made the point that the Prime Minister has worked hard over the last 2 years and won respect from many in the country. And it's a fair point. But working hard is not enough. The problems that she faces now are as a result of the decisions that she's taken. And we urge the Prime Minister at the outset of this process to reach out for the majority in Parliament who would have supported a sensible Brexit by acknowledging and saying that the people had voted to leave the European Union, but by the closest of margins. And I have to say I was bewildered to hear her earlier questioning the legitimacy of the 1975 referendum because 1/3 of people had voted against remaining in the EEC, while delivering this damaging Brexit, or seeking to, on a result which split the country down the middle. The 2016 referendum was a mandate to end our membership of the European Union, but not to rupture the relationship with our closest neighbours, our main trading partner and our key allies. Now, if she had said that 2 years ago, that she would seek a deal which reflected that position, that was right for people's jobs and their livelihoods, in a customs union close to the single market, in the agencies and partnerships that we have built together over 45 years, she could have secured a majority in Parliament, and she could have united the country that was so deeply divided by the referendum, and the Northern Ireland border would not have been an issue. And our amendment sets out the position the Prime Minister should have taken. But instead, she let the demands of the management of the Conservative Party shape her agenda. She set her red lines. She boxed herself in, and the result is this doomed deal which pleases nobody, as the Right Honourable Member for North Shropshire demonstrated so powerfully. This deal fails the 6 tests that Labour set for it at the outset, and I remind members opposite that those tests were based on the government's own goals, tests that the Prime Minister looked at, said were reasonable, and said that she was, and I quote, determined to meet. But, Mr. Speaker, one thing has changed since the deal was struck, and that's the government's narrative. A little honesty is finally breaking out. Those who spent the last 2 years endlessly repeating the mantra that no deal is better than a bad deal are now arguing that this bad deal should be accepted because the alternative is no deal, which they rightly say would be a catastrophe. And we, as an opposition, will work with the overwhelming, sensible majority in this House to prevent that happening. And we welcome the amendment passed by this House and moved by the Right Honourable Member for Beaconsfield, which provides a framework for ensuring that. Even more significantly, Mr. Speaker, the government's narrative has changed because claims that the country will be more prosperous as a result of Brexit have been abandoned. And rightly so, not least because this deal fails to provide the frictionless trade that we were promised. The government has confirmed that we will be economically worse off to varying degrees under every Brexit option, and it was a point made by my right honourable friend, the member for Derby South, in another very powerful contribution. Instead, the government argue that this deal should be accepted on the basis that failing to deliver on the 2016 referendum would have serious social and political consequences. And it's a serious point that shouldn't be lightly dismissed. But they should recognise there will be more serious consequences if Parliament votes for a damaging Brexit on a false prospectus. The public will not forgive politicians who do that. And this deal fails not just the 48%, but the 52% too. Mr. Speaker, as they've discarded the idea of a brighter economic future, the government say that this deal deserves support because it delivers on the other pledges, and particularly to take back control of our borders. Indeed, that is top of the government's 40 reasons to back the Brexit deal on their website. But the expectations unleashed by the rhetoric of taking back control are a long way from the reality. The government has had complete control over non-EU migration for the last 8 years, and in every one of those years, net migration from outside the EU was higher than from within it. And as last week's figures from the ONS show, falling immigration from the EU because people no longer wish to come has simply been replaced with non-EU immigration hitting a 14-year high. But on this central issue, the Home Secretary said this week that we are unlikely to see the government's plans before next Tuesday's vote. The long-promised white paper has been delayed beyond then, and it is a disgrace. And on other issues, the Brexit blindfold is tightening too. Take fishing, where the rhetoric of being an independent coastal state is not matched by the reality of the new deals that will need to be struck to ensure that we continue to have access to European markets that buy the 80% of the UK's catch. Another issue kicked down the road. But the political declaration, Mr. Speaker, kicks so much down the road. It offers no certainty, and it opens the door to a hard and damaging Brexit. A document that we were promised would be, quote, detailed, precise and substantive, setting out clearly our future relationship with the EU, is nothing of the sort. After 2 wasted years, we have no clear picture of our future relationship, as the Right Honourable Member for Broxtowe pointed out. This is a blindfold Brexit. The government is asking Parliament to take the country over a cliff with no clarity on the safety net, and we will not do it.
Call the Secretary of State for exiting the European Union, Stephen Barker.